the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New York town.
And we are live, Mets and overall baseball fans. Thank you guys so much for chiming back onto the channel for day 6 of Free Agent Frenzy for our beloved New York Mets and the MLB as a whole. Today we'll be deep diving, of course, everything that has transpired today in the MLB world, which to this point hasn't been much, but over the past couple hours we have seen some things happen. So we'll be getting into that. We'll also be getting into how the Mets fared today that we saw in spring training, the pressers from those spring training overall, with not just Buck Showalter, Francisco Lindor, and plenty of others, positives and negatives, everything that really has transpired today in the Mets world and baseball overall. And really, we're going to be doing our continued watch along and following up to date on all the news to see if any more news is going to happen tonight in free agency or the trade market for not only the Mets, but of course, baseball. So again, guys, thank you all so much for chiming in. I really, really do appreciate you guys. Continue smashing that like and subscribe button to help us get to 100 likes for the first short-term goal. Like I said, plenty to get into, so we are going to be talking a lot today. We'll see exactly how exactly this goes. If we do get any moves tonight, yesterday we did not get any on stream. We'll see if that actually if that is going to change at all. But I know that we have plenty of topics to break down, so we already got 300 plus viewers. If you're watching this on live or on replay, thank you guys so much as always. Smash those buttons, of course, and we're going to deep dive and get right into this thing. And again, thank you all so much in advance, guys, for the continued support. I really, really do appreciate it. But as you see here, there are plenty of topics that we'll be getting into tonight. And again, I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone has had a fantastic night. I know that I'm doing great. Again, we'll see how this goes. I do notice that my stream is a little laggy, so I apologize for that. If it's like that for the first little bit, I do hope that that changes throughout the live stream. But again, we'll see exactly how everything transpires throughout the live stream. Plenty of things have happened and fairly recent too. So I think I probably want to start with the Atlanta Braves. So to briefly touch on them quick, guys. So you guys saw how much I was ranting about Matt Olson going to the Braves and just how much I feel bad for Freddie Freeman, that he deserves better. And I stand by that. I will say, however, the Braves did make an unbelievably smart move today, and that was by extending Matt Olson to an 8-year, $168 million deal. So it didn't take them long to lock up. They're now longtime first baseman, you know, the successor now to Freddie Freeman. So we'll see how Olson does for the Braves. Obviously, that isn't a fun thing for us Mets fans. It was a great bargain contract, and the Braves just, again, continue to be able to get these bargain deals with some of the better players in all baseball. Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies, and now we have Matt Olson on an 8-year extension. Absolutely tremendous deal for them. I got to be honest, you know, you're looking at an average AAV of right around $21 million. I think the first year in that new contract is $15 million, and then the rest is like 22 plus. So either way, very, very good deal for them. For us Mets fans, again, it sucks that we're going to have to deal with another weapon at first base for the Braves for potentially the next 8 seasons. I'll take him to his age 35 season, but no less, definitely a very good move for the Braves, as much as that may kill me to say as a Mets fan. But again, to everyone that's first chiming in, guys, thank you all so much for being here. We got roughly 400 viewers already. I really do appreciate that. Continue smashing that like and subscribe button. As always, especially if you're new to the channel. And like I said, this will probably be another long live stream. We got plenty to break down and a lot to break down on the Mets front in particular with what has transpired today. But to all my members, thank you guys for being here. To all my subscribers, supporters overall, James, RP, Bonks, Nathan, Yippee, all you guys, Darren, great member and friend on the channel, all you guys, thank you all so much for chiming in. But I would like to say also the Braves, they did just make another move over the past, hour and a half the time recording this, and that was, yes, Colin McHugh, a reliever that the Mets were connected to, that felt like there was a decent possibility up until the Mets ended up signing Adam Ottavino. I felt that once the Mets signed Adam Ottavino, that the likelihood of them actually being able to land another righty was far slimmer than before, obviously, especially with them being in the market for a significant left-handed reliever. It didn't feel likely that they would get McHugh after getting Ottavino, and that holds true. McHugh goes to the Braves. Unfortunately, of all teams, he ends up going to the Braves, but on a 2-year deal, $10 million, and then there is a club option for that 3rd year. But while definitely that is a bargain of a deal, in my opinion, before we all jump to conclusions and say, oh, why didn't the Mets do that for a reliever at a 1.5-year rate last season? Well, let's keep in mind that Colin McHugh is a Atlanta native. He lives in Atlanta, and you'd have to imagine that that was a heavy factor, not just one, his decision-making, 2, obviously them being the reigning World Series champs, but 3, potentially taking a pay cut versus, say, what other teams offered. We don't necessarily know exactly how many teams were involved in his market. We know that the Mets were one of them, but I would just like to keep that in mind before people may jump to the conclusion that, oh, why didn't the Mets go and do this? Well, the reality is maybe the Mets really never had a realistic shot at someone like McHugh, because again, when you have personal preference, not just based off of, you know, who just won the championship, but if you're from the area, you know, it's definitely one of those things that's going to benefit that hometown team. And for this case, it benefits them not just with McHugh, but also, of course, that being in Matt Olson, because Matt Olson's a Georgia native as well. So they're bringing in all the Georgians, and for their sake, it's definitely benefiting them. And just like any other team, if you have a guy that, say, grew up a fan of that specific team or from that area, odds are there always is a certain degree of likelihood that you may have an upper edge on the other people that are trying to go for that specific player. So that's really all there is to know on the moves that has happened so far today. We did see that the New York Mets did do a pickup, that being in signing, yes, that would be in Mike Montgomery, I believe, who the Mets actually had in spring training last year, but then they ended up cutting him loose. Montgomery, who's a veteran left-handed southpaw starting pitcher, but can come out of the pen as well, had his best years during his time with the Chicago Cubs. Didn't pitch in the MLB last season, did pitch, I believe, in the KBO, where I know he was overseas. Did not have great numbers there. The Mets signed him on at least a $1 million deal, a minor league deal. I would not put much stock into this. All this is a minor league deal to add more lefty depth for the Mets. He's going to have potential of trying to compete for a bullpen spot this year. It's not a strong likelihood at all that he's going to even crack the bullpen. He's probably going to stay in the minors throughout the season, assuming that he does, in fact, stay with the Mets and they do not part with him. But it's a minor league deal. There is no connection between him and, of course, that being in the likes of going after Andrew Chafin, a pipe dream pick that, again, the Mets have had connections with, and Josh Hader, among others. So, because I know that there were people wondering exactly, is this going to prohibit the Mets from landing a big-name lefty in the bullpen? No, I wouldn't connect the two whatsoever. They aren't connected at all. So definitely keep that in mind when you're evaluating that signing by the Mets. But even though it's not a blockbuster or anything, I want to have that on the board for you guys in case you weren't aware already of what transpired earlier today. But before I go any further, guys, I want to know to everybody that's watching the live stream right now, of course, on replay, you would know, how is the quality of the video looking? Is it looking too laggy to you guys? Is it looking okay? Is the audio okay? Can you guys let me know in the chat right now how exactly it is? And again, thank you guys so much for being here. Continue smashing that like and subscribe button. Really, really do appreciate it. Thank you all so much for the continued support. Like I said, this is going to be an extended live stream tonight, folks. Fully expected. Quality is good. Fuzzy. Okay. Again, I really want to know how it is for you guys. Make sure that it is okay. Okay, I just feel that I'm a little too bright. That's the only thing. I'm normally not as bright on the camera, so I may change that in a little bit. I don't know why the settings is acting up the way it is. Sometimes it just happens, though. I only have so much control with these type of things. What's up, Brett? What's up, Baseball Mikey? Edwin, all you guys. Solomon, how's it going? How's it going, buddy? Let's see. Felix, great member on the channel. Yippee, Nathan, all you guys. Jeremy, great member. All you guys, thank you again all so much to everybody chiming in. But I'm going to put up a poll real quick, guys, and we're going to go from there. Like I said, we got a lot to talk about, and I'm going to talk extensively about the Mets. And we already passed 100 likes. Thank you guys so much for that. We're going to try to get to 300 for the next short-term goal in the stream. You guys know the drill by now, so continue smashing those buttons. But let's get into, pardon me 1 second. I want to put up a poll and ask you guys if you think we will see a move tonight. Okay, there we go. We got it in the chat. Awesome to see. Awesome to see. And give me 1 more second, guys. I'm going to just quickly adjust. I'm going to adjust my camera real quick because I don't like how it looks. Don't mind how bright I get. I'm just fixing it. Okay, that looks better. I like that better than how it was prior. I'm also going to do one more thing, too. Maybe I'm going to get rid of the moving background for a bit because it seems like it's being a little much. Let's see if that changes the lag at all. I don't know if it will, but we'll see how that goes. Okay. Way better. Awesome. Good. Good. Love to hear that. Why can't we get Schwarber? Okay. We're going to talk plenty on Schwarber. Schwarber is actually a very hot topic right now, especially because of the fact that we did just see a report over the past 20 minutes, not even that it looks like for the Blue Jays' sake, according to Ken Rosenthal, that they are feeling more comfortable that they would land Kyle Schwarber than they would Freddie Freeman at this point in time, again, according to reports. So take that as you will. Schwarber does have many suitors. A lot of teams are in on Schwarber. The Phillies are definitely one of them, as are others. And that's really where you get into, okay, are the Mets going to be in on Schwarber? Naturally, you would imagine that the Mets will have a certain level of interest for a guy that is probably not going to go back past a 3-year deal. If he touches 4 or 5, then I think that there's definitely little to no chance. But especially on a shorter term deal, which is not what we're expected to see with someone like Chris Bryant, for example, or even Carlos Correa for the most part, you would imagine that there's a certain level of interest in Kyle Schwarber. I will be completely honest. I don't think that there's a great chance for the Mets to land Schwarber just because of the fact that we haven't, until we see something, I'm not going to get my hopes up, of course. But I will say that is exactly from plenty of the moves that we have seen, we've seen very little rumblings on up until the move actually happened. So not just for the Mets, but I would imagine, but for other moves that could potentially be had tonight at the time of recording this, if they do happen, it seems like the likelihood of a lot of stuff being leaked out prior is slim, which is probably a good thing. Now, obviously, it's frustrating when we're in a live stream like this at times when we're doing a watch along, we're following along and trying to see exactly what is going to happen. But when you look at exactly if something does happen, it definitely builds the excitement more, especially if it's going to be something regarding the Mets. Let's see. Okay, I do see a donation already, though, so thank you so much for that, Dave. I appreciate it. Again, continue smashing that like and subscribe button, folks, if you're enjoying the stream. Like I said, we have a lot to break down tonight if you're watching live or on replay. How will vax mandate in NY affect the Mets? Okay, I know that this is something that's probably going to be talked about plenty throughout the live stream, and that's a great question, Dave. So from what we saw today, again, right now, it looks as if the Mets, any players that are not vaccinated or not able to play at home games, now, regardless on what your opinion is on that, that looks like that is the unfortunate situation for the sake of, obviously, the Mets not being able to have everyone able to play. Now, the question is, I've seen mixed reports as to exactly how many players are vaccinated versus not, and obviously, who those players are, I'm not even going to bother to get into that discussion or anything like that. But from what I did see, at least reported by Michael Mayer earlier today, was that there were 5 players on the Mets current roster that were not vaccinated last season because they didn't reach, I think, the 85% threshold that they were looking for. But since then, multiple players have been vaccinated that originally weren't. And there are other people that were originally on the Mets that weren't vaccinated and now are no longer with the team. Obviously, we know some of those players that aren't. So it'll be interesting exactly how much of an impact this has on the Mets at all. I hope it has none. I hope that this is something that doesn't transpire. I hope that obviously when you look at the season as a whole for the Mets and the Yankees' sake, that's not something that they have to worry about, especially when you, again, this is something where you're wondering, why is this even happening? Does this make any sense? After, of course, last season, you not had just the players, but fans too, all could be in attendance at Citi Field, and you didn't have to be vaccinated. There was no mandate. The mandate, of course, kicked in December 27th. That was originally put in by de Blasio, I believe. And because of that, since then, it is holding true not just for the Nets with the Kyrie Irving situation that everyone knows, of course, but it also is connected with outdoor outings and literally anyone that is doing a job. Basically, it is impacting still. So the Yankees said that they are working actively on the situation. The Mets have yet to make a statement. Again, I'm not overly concerned about the situation as of now. I really hope, of course, that this isn't going to be a detriment to obviously the type of season that the Mets are hopefully going to have, which is a great one, I would imagine. So again, that's kind of just a wait and see situation. There's really not much more I want to discuss on the matter because of the fact that this is just a subject that, again, we don't know what is going to come of this right now. It just came out today. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just informing you guys on what we found out. And that's that. And of course, I know we got people in the live stream. All I ask, guys, is, let's just all be civil. I know that obviously there's always animosity with people on the vaccine front, pro, against, regardless. Let's just drop it there is all I ask. I want to talk about baseball. This isn't what I want to talk about. And I think for obvious reasons, most people feel the exact same way. But that's where we're going to leave things. So getting on now to what has happened with the Mets today, right? Well, as many of you guys probably saw already, we saw Buck Showalter speak to the media today, and he really broke down what is happening with Jeff McNeil, what is happening with JD Davis, Dom Smith. Now, Jeff McNeil, from what we're seeing right now, it doesn't look like there's a strong likelihood he is going to be traded. We talked about this a lot in previous live streams, especially. But, of course, it looks like for the Mets right now, Jeff McNeil is going to be basically starting second base every day. That's the position he's going to be mainly at. He may get toyed in the outfield too, said Buck. And then you also have JD Davis, Dom Smith. JD looks like he's going to get most time at third base because Cano will be taking over DH, as he will second base sometime at first. Again, we don't know exactly how much of a role Cano is going to have. We don't know how much of a role guys like JD Davis and Dom are going to have. He did say that Dom will get time in the outfield, which is something that I'm not in favor of. It doesn't really make too much sense, at least from the defensive side of things. But I will say to everyone that is freaking out about really talking about JD Davis, Dom Smith, you have to realize that even if one or both of those guys end up being traded by the time the season starts, and we'll get to Marte in a second too, regardless on what their status is going to be with the Mets in their future, the Mets are going to operate and Buck Showalter as if they're with the team. So by no means are you going to see Buck come out and say, oh, I don't really know how we're going to go about JD. I don't really know how we're going to go about Dom. No, he's going to be fully prepped, and they're going to all work with the mindset that the roster right now is what they're working with. So again, I don't really think that this changes exactly the likelihood of a JD, of a Dom being traded. And I will say that I do think that there is still a very decent likelihood that at least one of them is dealt. If not, then okay, we'll see how it goes for the season. We'll see if guys get traded maybe by the deadline or if they have more impactful roles. Again, JD, offense has been the issue. He dealt with a thumb injury like all season long. We saw that. Still had a good average, but again, really lacked the power for the most part, home run wise. And then Dom really had his struggles at times, had some nice streaks off the bench for sure, but both of them lacked that defensive versatility, that defensive upside, which has always been the biggest gripe with both those players respectively. Hasn't necessarily been with their bats nearly as much as it has been their defense, but something that is important to look at when you discuss a JD, a Dom Smith, is the fact that these are two guys that realistically, how much value do you have them via trade, especially if you trade them by themselves? I don't think it's in the Mets' best interest to just trade these guys for the sake of trading them, even if they are really without a role on the team. And again, guys, if we find out any news I do not touch on yet in the live stream, you know the drill by now. Please make sure to tag me on Twitter at WardyNYM or let me know in the live stream, because again, we're following along throughout the free agent and trade market. I just want to again recap quick what has happened with the Mets today from what Buck has said and others. But yeah, point being, again, is something that JD and Dom by themselves, you're probably not getting much trade value out of. So realistically, if the Mets are going to trade these guys, they want to try to max out their value. That may be giving you more reasoning as to why it's probably best to trade at least both of them together versus separately. Because again, the value just is not high in regards to exactly what you're working with if you just trade them by themselves right now after both having down years. They're still a promise for sure, but again, especially with their current roles on the team, they don't have a tremendous amount of value. Jeff McGill was the guy that had the biggest amount of value out of those three. Again, can Jeff McGill be traded? Yes, he absolutely can. Do I think it is likely? No, I do not. So I do not think it's likely at this point in time until proven otherwise, and that's perfectly okay, because the Mets should not trade Jeff McGill unless you maximize on his value. And if things are okay with him and Lindor, then great. Lindor, I know, spoke to the media today as well, as many of you probably saw that, Lindor, him and Jeff haven't had a problem since that incident. He looked a little awkward when he was saying it. He was just saying how, our focus is to win games. So I do think that there is still not animosity between the two, but maybe not as much of a comfortability as there probably should be by now. Because again, the reports in the offseason were indicative of Jeff McNeil's relationship not only with Lindor, but with other players in the locker room. So it did go beyond Lindor from reports that we saw. Now, how much has that changed since then? How much of impact will Buck Showalter have on the clubhouse culture? And of course, the new players, that being Max Scherzer, Starling Marte, even Cano being back, obviously, Eduardo Escobar, so on and so forth. Those can all have positive factors into what was potentially there, and hopefully it's not there anymore. But again, the Mets are not going to just trade away these guys for the sake of trading them. They will make sure that if they do something like that, it'll be at the right price, and rightfully so. So that's something they may reassess and may still happen prior to the lockout. Again, it's a very wait and see situation, and that's perfectly fine. We're going to just wait and see what happens in a nutshell for the most part. And again, guys, please do not talk politics in the live stream. I do not care what side you're on. I literally do not give a rat's ass. If you get any political in this, I'm going to just kick you. Simple as that. We're here for baseball, not for politics. That's the last thing that anyone needs to be talking about right now. Again, it doesn't matter what side it is, just stop. And that's, again, one and only warning. If you guys have a problem with that, that's fine. You can leave. Justin, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that a lot. Justin says, and give me 1 second here. Hype in the chat for Justin, too. That was beyond kind of you. I really appreciate that. I would love the Mets to make another big move, but we got to remember that DeGrom, Taiwan, Bassett, Diaz, May, Ottavino, Nimmo, Lugo, Cookie, Castro all become free agents after this year. Got to leave room for next year. Absolutely, Justin. No, that is a very good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. And to respond to this, what I will say, Justin, is that do the Mets basically have a lot of guys that are going to be set to hit the market? Yes, but for all these players, the ones that obviously, one, have strong years, and two, that the Mets have a good relationship with, I'm not awfully concerned about. DeGrom, I have literally zero concern on with his future. Bassett, I have little to none. I feel that the Mets will extend Bassett. If not prior to the season, then hopefully sometime during the season. Ottavino, that's expected to be a one-year deal, not a big thing. Lugo, Cookie, Castro, those are all guys that very well could be back or very well could be replaced depending on how the season goes. And then you have, of course, Taiwan. He's a big question mark. Diaz, he's definitely one that'll be interesting to see what his future is. And Nimmo, of course, again, is someone that you would imagine will stay with the Mets long term, but he may, in fact, test the waters. So, yes, I agree with you for sure. That is definitely something that I'm sure the Mets are weighing in their decision-making, but I do not think it'll be an X factor per se into determining what players they still target this offseason in this free agency / the trade market. It may have a certain level on exactly what they are going to do, but I don't think it's going to be anything drastic because at the end of the day, money's not an issue for the Mets. The guys that they bring back will be the guys that they know that they are certain that they want to bring back. The Mets do not bring back players next year that they want to bring back. Odds are it's not going to be for a lack of effort. And it may just come down to one of those things where maybe the player wants to leave, just doesn't want to be with the Mets anymore. But again, money's not really much of a factor, which is the best thing to take out of this for certain, especially when you look at, Steve Cohen. He has that willingness. Again, anyone that balls out for the Mets this year has a significant impact and wants to stay, I feel very confident saying that the Mets will make sure that they keep him. If you look at the players that the Mets parred with this offseason, the only player that the Mets parred with that I think most of us were in agreement would stay, that the Mets want to keep, other than Noah Syndergaard, because that was just a fluke situation with the qualifying offer, was in fact, yes, Javi Baez. But that was one of those things where the Mets wanted to keep Baez, but they want to keep him at a certain price. They didn't want to go 6 years and want to opt out after 2. So in a nutshell, whatever the Mets do, I feel confident with, because they have a strong hold on the market, and they will for years and years on end. And Justin, thank you so much for the donation again. I appreciate that. And guys, we got plenty more to talk about. I'm going to get to your questions as soon as I possibly can. And again, folks, if you see reports that happen, please make sure to tag me or let me know in the live stream too. Always appreciate, guys. And again, thank you so much in advance for all the support. Thomas, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Since A's and Reds are not tanking, is there anyone starter, reliever, outfield on either team the Mets could or should trade for? Yeah, no, they're definitely tanking, Thomas. That's why you have it, like that. I would say for the Reds, for both teams, and I know I'm going to say this so much tonight, I'm sure, but the Mets should absolutely make sure that they're at least kicking tires on, a Castillo, a Tyler Mahle that they had previous interest in, or potentially a Sean Manaea and a Chapman. You have to at least weigh those markets and see what the value is right now, especially after the Reds Winker trade, to see if you can take advantage of the Reds at all, to be honest with you, because they haven't had the best trades that we've seen in recent history, including the one yesterday, in my personal opinion. But does that mean anything's going to come out of that? It's tough to say, especially where you look at the Mets rosters right now, their rotation right now, and the fact that they already did a trade to land Bassett. So I don't think there's a strong likelihood the Mets will trade with either club. I will say, though, and I said this a lot yesterday, and I'll say it again, the Mets did do a trade with the Oakland A's for either, potentially reliever Lou Trevino that we talked about a little bit, and Matt Chapman, a little bit more of a pipe dream. Again, it's hard to imagine Chapman because Eduardo Escobar is a Mets starting third baseman right now. So unless you trade Jeff McNeil, which feels unlikely at the moment, there isn't much there. But Dom Smith, again, is that one guy I would keep an eye on with the Oakland A's, just for the sole fact, again, that they don't have a first baseman, and Dom Smith could definitely thrive there in a full-time role. So just to definitely keep that in mind. But again, Thomas, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone in the live stream, guys. Like I said, plenty to talk about. Just trying to answer some of these donations quick before we go further. Gabe, thank you so much for the donut as well. I appreciate that. Hot take, sign Trevor Story and put him at second base. Trey McNeil, Dom Smith, Ronnie Davis, and $45 million for Yelich. No, you lost me at Yelich. You completely lost me at Yelich. If you had Hader in here, then it's a different discussion. But you just said for Yelich that by no means should the Mets do something like that for Yelich at all. And that will not happen at all either. I do agree that Trevor Story is an ideal guy to go after for potentially second base if you can make it work and if he's willing, depending on the contract, shorter term, if you trade McNeil. But that's in the scenario that you are committed to trading McNeil for something significant. Doesn't look like we are seeing that right now. So again, because of those reasons, that's just a beyond hot take right now. Again, if the Mets make more moves, which they will, we'll see exactly when. Could be tonight, could be tomorrow, could be the next day. The next day, that's how the market works. I have a feeling that with the Mets' next moves, we might not see much, if at all, reporting prior to it happening with exactly what those moves are going to be. But again, I really, really appreciate that donation. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Sean, thank you so much for the $10 donation. Really, really appreciate that. Let's see. Michael, thank you so much for the $5 dono. Great member on the channel. Hype in the chat for Michael as well. Trey McNeil will be a mistake. I think you'll be better this year, but mostly importantly, imagine what he hits next year when they ban the shift in 2023. That's a great point. I definitely see McNeil thriving, not just this season, but when the shift is gone too, it's only going to benefit him. You're 100% right. And I agree that I think that trading McNeil would be a mistake if you do not, one, make sure you have a proper infield replacement, and two, maximize his value. Now, I don't see a role where the Mets would trade McNeil unless, obviously, they did exactly both those things. So, again, if they trade him, I'm feeling decently confident just because I know that it would be worthwhile in the end for what the Mets are trying to do. But at the same time, the Mets already land their bona fide number 3 starter, so they don't have nearly as much of a, adamancy to trade McNeil, especially for a starting pitcher like they would have landing someone like, of course, Chris Bassit. And Sean, thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate that. everyone for the kind words. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to check Twitter here in a second, folks, but a couple more things I would like to touch on before we really just deep dive and just answer a bunch of questions for a large portion of time, I'm sure. Regarding Taijuan Walker, Taijuan is hopeful that he will be ready to start the season because from his knee surgery they had in mid-January. Odds are he's probably going to come back around mid-April, it looks like right now. But there's hope that he will be in the Mets starting rotation this season. Cookie Carrasco is looking very, very good that we're seeing in spring. He is a little behind on schedule, which again, shouldn't be surprised. He had a procedure this offseason, like Taijuan, separate procedures, because I know that his was on his arm or his elbow, I believe, somewhere around there. But normally when he's throwing a BP that we're seeing in spring training, he's in, the mid to high 80s. He said, throughout his career, but this season already in spring training, he threw 92 today, which is definitely promising. So it tells you that he has more life on his fastball than he would have initially expected to this point. So even though he looks like he's a little behind, at least from what report I saw, it does look like that he will be ready to go, hopefully right when the season begins. I think it's very similar to Taijuan Walker, just seeing exactly how much work they're going to get in spring, and they got to make sure they're fully healthy. The Mets, of course, rushed Cookie last season. They have to make sure they don't do that this time around. But again, thank you so much for all the donations and the support, folks. Ron, thank you so much for the dono as well. Braves need to be investigated by the FBI with these friendly deals. And I will say that I not the FBI degree, but you have to wonder, the Braves managed to do that extension for Olsen rather quickly. Were they able to do all those negotiations after the lockout, or was there something happening during the lockout? Because we know that there was a lot of rumblings about Olsen and the Braves pre-lockout because of the fact that they weren't feeling great on the chances of bringing Freddie Freeman back. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, Ron. It definitely is. And again, thank you so much for the donation. I really, really appreciate that. To over 200 likes. Thank you guys so much. Again, we're trying to get 400 likes for the next short-term goal. Oh my goodness, Mr. Cool, guys, I'm gonna put you in a timeout at first. Hope that no more spam comes. You guys probably know the drill by now. Please don't spam. Who will get Freeman? It seems like Freeman. There's still actually shot from the Dodgers. As of now, the Blue Jays feel more comfortable that they're going to land Kyle Schwarber than they are Freddie. Now, to what degree are they in talks with Kyle Schwarber? Are the Blue Jays the favorite for Kyle Schwarber? We don't know that right now. As I said, a lot of teams are in the Schwarber market, but also got to keep in mind when you look at Freddie Freeman, we saw reports today that the Rays are still continued interest in him. We also saw reports that, yes, the Red Sox have interest in Freddie Freeman. So it seems like the AL East as a whole, all those contenders are involved in Freddie Freeman. To what degree, we'll see. Again, the Blue Jays felt like the favorites yesterday. Now who knows exactly what's going to happen. But you'd have to think that the Freeman market is going to it's going to end at some point, meaning that he's going to land somewhere, right? Is it going to be today? Is it going to be tomorrow? I mean, yeah. But yes, very slow day so far, Mikey. Again, if you're watching this live on replay, you know that by now. But yeah, literally nothing for the most part happened other than the Olsen extension, and then the final hour prior to me going live here at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time was the deal with the Atlanta Braves. So I'm going to check Twitter real quick, guys. Bear with me. I know I haven't done yet since we started going live here to see if I missed, folks. Want to make sure I don't miss anything here. And like I said, folks, if anything happens tonight and I don't address it right away, please make sure to let me know. What are you guys on today in the chat? My goodness. Guys are acting stupid. Not all you, but you know who you are. Why are you acting up today, guys? What happened? Had too much sugar or something? I don't understand. Yeah. Okay. So the latest report from MLB Trade Rumors was exactly what I just said. Actually, Red Sox Padres tied to the Freeman bidding today. Yep, that is exactly correct. Let's see here. So guys, again, if you have plenty of questions, which I know you guys have asked a bunch, and I haven't really been able to address much yet. So if you'd like to, please make sure to go away and ask them. I'm doing great, Robert. How are you? Everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much for being here on live or in replay. I really, really do appreciate it. Let's see. Yeah. So again, with the Mets today, plenty positives. And to talk about Starling Marte for a second, because I didn't already, he had oblique soreness, did not really participate at all yesterday. Today, he did participate in various drills and things like that. So it looks like Marte, looks like he's perfectly fine, which is great. I know obliques, you can't rush them. You just have to wait them out. But it's definitely good to see that it looks like that Marte is okay. So I'm very happy about that. You ate Stormy. No, you did not, Hawk. I'm looking at her right now. But yeah, so that's kind of my take on Starling Marte. It looks like that he's fine.